to Ion Horror, the official podcast of iHorror.com. This is episode 131, otherwise known as season 7, episode 12. I am your host, James J. Edwards, and with me, as always, is your other host, Jacob Davison. How you doing, Jacob?
Doing okay. Just had a long night, so doing my best to stay awake.
It's sleepy. Yeah, we record these early, and yeah, we're we're all sleepy. Also with us, as always, is your other host, John Correia. How you doing, Correia?
Doing great. I already just have chugged half a bang, so and I haven't eaten anything yet, so I have about 30 minutes before I start getting weird.
You know what? I tried those bangs when they were on sale at Costco. Dude, bang is nasty. It is. I couldn't handle it. You know what I want to try though is there's a new energy drink called Lucky Fuck. Have you seen?
Jesus.
Have heard about that? It's I keep getting targeted ads on Facebook for it, and it looks really interesting. So anyway.
And I wouldn't trust Facebook ads for an energy drink.
No, well, you can get it. You can get it through Amazon, and I'm waiting for them to have like a variety pack at Costco or something like that. But yeah, this is not Ion energy drinks though. This is Ion horror, and I think we're already going to be stretching that definition this episode because not a whole lot has come out horror wise, but the big release that's out right now, and we can't even talk too much about it without spoiling anything, but Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, no spoils. I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't seen it? Oh my. Okay, so we can barely even talk because this movie is full of fun shit that just cannot be spoiled. Like literally first frame to last frame, you just know that it's typical Deadpool, it's R-rated Marvel, and there are just fun Easter eggs and cameos from beginning to end. It's so awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it mainly because we're finally getting the multiverse hopping Deadpool, which we haven't gotten before, and that's such a big part of his character is the ridiculousness of that. So I'm seeing it Friday.
And the thing I really love about it, and I don't think this is really much of a spoiler, but it is kind of a love letter to the 20th Century Fox era Marvel movies.
Yeah, it totally is. It's like if you know the pre-quote MCU Marvel history, yeah, you'll love it. You'll love it anyway. I don't see how anyone can not love this movie. The funniest thing is a lot of it's being spoiled on Facebook. Like it's doing that annoying thing. Like the reason that I stopped watching Walking Dead, because Beth's death was spoiled for the West Coast. And I don't even follow their page. It just popped up because someone I know followed it. The same thing is happening with this. Like pages I don't follow are spoiling things. So
yeah,
it's you got to be careful though. But I don't watch trailers. I think I've told everybody that. But I did go back and watch trailers after I saw this, and there's one thing in the trailer that gets spoiled is Wolverine fights Sabretooth, but it is not what you think it is at all.
No, I'm looking forward to it. But the big release I did see though, because I had to see it opening night. Twisters. Did you guys see Twisters?
I did.
No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I saw Twisters.
Ooh.
Twisters. Okay, here's the deal. I watched Twister the night before I saw Twisters because just to kind of refresh.
Mm-hmm.
And here is the difference. Here's my problem with Twisters.
To remember the mythology, the lore of the Twister franchise.
Yes, exactly. And it paid off because in the very first scene, there's freaking Dorothy 4. But anyway, my problem with Twisters is, okay, Twister was a totally fun movie. Everybody in that movie is in on what kind of movie they're making. They all know, even, serious like freaking Jamie Gertz even realize what kind of movie they're making. And Philip Seymour Hoffman, this is the movie that got him his role in Boogie Nights. He's
really?
So amazing. Well, I can see this role getting him his role in Boogie Nights because I had even forgotten he was in it until I saw it. I'm like, well, is that? Yeah, that is him because it's so different from anything else he's ever done. But Twister is so fun, and Twisters to me is not. It takes itself so seriously, and They had the perfect. They go to a rodeo and a tornado hits. They had the perfect opportunity to do a cow joke, and they didn't take it.
Yeah.
Come on.
I will say the lack of cow joke was a bit disappointing. Twister, I didn't rewatch Twister before because I was waiting for my 4K to come in and it didn't come in time. But I've seen that movie so much. It's one of those ones where it just kind of know like the back of my hand. And like I remember I went to a friend's house and they put it on for like background and like there's a whole party going on and I was just sitting there in the living room watching Twister and everyone's like, "You watching Twister?" I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm watching Twister. Look how hot everyone is in this movie. Holly Hunter, Bill Paxton, fucking Philip Seymour Hoffman, Jamie Gertz. Do I need to keep going? Get out of here.
Carrie Ellis is in it.
Oh, dude, next thing I know, half the party's watching Twister with me, and everyone's like, "Holy shit, this movie's awesome." I'm like, yeah,
I think I told you guys one time my wife used to do roller derby and we had all the roller derby girls over for a party at once. And rollerball happened to be on one of the channels we had.
The original?
Yeah, the original.
Yeah.
And it was on and little by little people started watching it. And at one point one of the girls goes, "Why don't we get motorcycles?"
I've been saying that for fucking years. Rollerball needs to be an actual thing.
Okay, on with your Twister. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you.
No, but back to Twisters. I really like Twisters. They're definitely I know the first wasn't all practical. They didn't actually have twisters. Come on. But there was definitely in the very beginning where when the first tragedy happens, right? The establishing tragedy happens, where I was like, okay, yeah, this is fine. I'm in it. Yeah, we're in it. And like I was pretty fine with it. And then Glenn Powell and Katie O'Brien show up in their RVs and just took that film to the next level. And it was almost like two different movies were happening. There was the Daisy Jones movie, Twister movie, and then there was the Glenn Powell. And even her acting changed when Glenn was on or whether Glenn was in the scene or not. And it just the two of them elevated it so much. And as a sequel, especially a legacy sequel so many years later, it's a lot of fun without trying too hard to be like the first movie, without trying too hard to connect. Like, yes, we have Dorothy Ford at the beginning, but there wasn't a whole lot of connection. It kind of did feel like originally she was going to be Helen Hunt's daughter, but then they couldn't book her or something.
I did feel like when they got the mom into it, that I'm like, okay, this role was written for Helen.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like that.
But like, for whatever reason they didn't, I really appreciate, because I did read that originally they do kiss in the movie, but Steven Spielberg was like, nah, get rid of that. Because I really appreciated that it was like a love story, but like it's still a work in progress, between them. So that was nice.
What I loved most about it is because you've got the Kate character, she's like like you said, the establishing tragedy. One of the survivors of that, he works for some real estate developer, and they're tracking these tornadoes to find out where they're going to land and where the dangers for like the insurance company kind of a thing. And then the other team, the Carrie Elwes team, I guess you could call it, is the Glenn Powell one. They're YouTubers that are storm chasers and stuff. And they're like Mad Max rolling in their trucks. Yeah. And this is in the trailer, the truck that drills itself into the ground.
So good. I love that bit.
I question if that would work, but if it would, I love it because that is pretty good. But I do love how about halfway through the movie, there's this ambiguity as to who the good guys and who the bad guys are. And one of the YouTubers is played by Sasha Lane, and she has a drone that she flies into these tornadoes. And Sasha Lane with a drone, come on. I did enjoy that. That was about as fun as the movie got for me, though. Sasha Lane and her drone.
Well, for me, as an obsessed Scream Queens fan, because I've been Team Glenn Powell ever since season 1 of Scream Queens. Just the fact that his main friend in Twisters is named Boone was the greatest thing in the world to me. Just hearing Glenn Powell shout Boone multiple times throughout the movie just filled my heart with joy, because that was Nick Jonas's character in Scream Queens, was also named Boone. And so just having him go Boone, It just every time my face lit up. It was beautiful. And although I do have to say, because they show it in the trailer, that there's a sequence in a single screen small town movie theater, and it's the one time I'm like, movie logic, come on, guys, because they basically go, do we do the research or do we save the people? And it's like, we got to save the people. And then they move them all into a single screen movie theater that was probably built in the 1930s. And it's like, this is the worst fucking place you can bring. It's a tall building that has like no structure. That thing's coming down hard. Like, what are you guys? That's not saving people.
And you know that they're in Oklahoma. You know there's a basement to that building. Get everybody down there.
There was no basements in the movie. No basements anywhere. Though the pool sequence at the rodeo was pretty awesome. I gotta say, like, yeah, Twisters is a lot of fun. If you like the first one, I think this is how you should do a Legacy sequel. Not trying too hard to be like the original, not trying too hard to reinvent the wheel, just taking what worked before. And also, the director also did Minari, and boy, does he know how to shoot the Midwest. He knows how to shoot those open spaces, and so there's a lot of really great camera work happening in there. So yeah.
Yeah, between that and the guy who did Pig doing the prequel to A Quiet Place, it's wild just how many directors who got their start with these kind of groundbreaking independent projects are handling these big budget blockbuster sequels and prequels.
Yeah, good for them, dude. Especially if they can do the Nolan thing where they get these big, like budget franchises and then turn around and make the personal films. Like, hell yeah, all for it.
You got to get that paycheck.
Yeah. A really interesting documentary that I found the other day on Canopy. Again, I'm plugging Canopy. If go out to your local public library, get a library card, and then sign up for Canopy. Canopy is an amazing resource. Your local library is an amazing resource. Go do it. They get a lot of new stuff. Like all the new A24s are on there for free to watch. And then the whole service is free.
Now, I think that the library on Canopy varies with what library you sign up with, though.
Yes, some libraries don't have access to it, so check your local libraries.
Well, and some libraries don't have access to the same stuff as other libraries. That's what I'm saying. I think your library might not have access to all the brand new A24 stuff, but yeah.
I think with Canopy, it's because they do a ticket system. So you get like 25 tickets a month, and a movie is usually like 2 or 3 tickets. So it's per title. It's doesn't work exactly like Libby, but check it out. You can also get a digital library, especially the New York library allows anybody to get a digital library card. So
that's true. You may just have to find the right library to get a card through.
Yeah, so check it out. But anyways, on Canopy, they have this documentary called The Conqueror, Hollywood Fallout. And it's all about Howard Hughes's last film, The Conqueror, which is famously the Genghis Khan movie starring John Wayne, which right off the bat, you know that's an insane production. If they go, yeah, John Wayne, the epitome of American machismo Western playing Genghis Khan. It was an epic failure on many levels, except for financially, kind of. I don't know. But they go into where Howard Hughes was in life, because this was the movie, if you remember The Aviator, when he's locked up in his house and is very hermit. This is the movie he was projecting on repeat day in and day out in his house. It was the last film he made, and the production behind it is absolutely insane, mainly because they shot it in Utah, 300 miles away from where they were doing the atomic testing in Nevada. And so everyone on the cast and crew got cancer from making this movie. And so did the entire town that they shot in. And so the documentary goes through the making of it and how it was made. But then they also continue going into its legacy and what it made. And they talk about like how the director got cancer and died like 3 or 4 years later, how a lot of the main actors got cancer. John Wayne famously got cancer, but he was because it was around the time when people were starting to go, hey, smoking's bad for us. Holy shit, it is. And so John Wayne was famously saying that it was that. And he was super patriotic. So he's not going to say that the U.S. government gave him cancer. But it's really interesting because the legacy with that town, especially, like so many people got cancer. Young children were like they were talking about 8-year-olds who were dying from testicular cancer, which is insane.
8-year-olds barely have testicles. How'd they get cancer in it?
Dude, that's how radiated it was. But the propaganda that the government was putting out at the time was saying, no, 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 you're safe as long as you are inside your house for a few hours after the winds. But they go into, they kind of cover up the propaganda, and it wasn't really until the 80s did some journalists basically write a report saying the U.S. government killed John Wayne. Did people start paying attention, because that town was largely ignored about it, even though the cancer rates in it were absolutely insane. And it's so, as much as that movie was a disaster, it's because of that movie that that town was able to get reparations, because when you say the U.S. government killed John Wayne, people listen. But it's really well done, really well researched, and it really gets you thinking, like, holy shit, yeah, we were doing nuclear testing. Like, the amount of nukes that were tested in that area, and essentially the amount of times the U.S. government bombed its own country. I think they said they did 928 tests out there, i.e., they did 928 things, and it's not like that radiation goes away. It's not, it gets picked up from the wind, and they showed like the graphs of where the nuclear fallout and radiation goes, and it's across America. And goes up into Canada and shit. And it's something that we're not talking about. So yeah, The Conqueror, Hollywood Fallout. I highly recommend it, especially if you're a movie buff, because again, The Conqueror is an insane movie, and how it was made is insane, but its legacy is much darker than just, John Wayne in Yellowface. So yeah, on Canopy.
And on my end, I've watched a bunch of horror movies on the anniversaries. There's been a lot of repertory screenings. Like just last week was the 15th anniversary of the Friday the 13th remake from 2009.
Yeah.
Which, in my opinion, is very underrated as a Friday the 13th movie. And, it's just also wild that that's the last movie we've had since then. It's been 15 years, and because of the rights issues, haven't seen Jason in action for a long time outside of, I think, mostly video games. Yeah. But yeah, no, the remake still holds a special place in my heart because I think, Shannon Swift did such a great job in distilling the franchise into one story and doing that incredible opening prologue and leading into the main story.
That's what I think about when I think about the Friday the 13th remake. I think about basically that opening scene, which is like 20 minutes long, and it's like you almost forget that you haven't seen an opening title, and all of a sudden then it's like Friday the 13th. You're like, oh yeah.
That was a mic drop of a title drop.
Yeah, very much. Yeah.
And yeah, no, Derek Mears was an incredible Jason Voorhees. It was like, because Derek Mears was actually there for Q&A with Shannon Swift, and they talked, and somebody from the audience mentioned just how much acting he does with just his eyes, because you actually do get some movement from Jason. This is not like zombie Jason. This is not Invincible Jason. This is like kind of a backwoods Rambo Jason, because he's got all the traps, and he does get injured, and he can be taken aback. So there is more of a humanity to Jason in this, but he's still a terrifying killing machine. And it has some pretty inventive kills. I think a lot of the screaming was from the one where the stoner kid's in the tool shed and he gets like slowly stabbed in the neck with a screwdriver.
Yeah.
Like, that got a big response. Because it was also around that time with the Platinum Dunes remakes and stuff where, it's just kind of the violence was just a bit more brutal. But yeah, no, that was a fun one. And a couple days ago, I went to the 25th anniversary screening of the Blair Witch Project. And that one still is probably one of my all-time favorite found footage horror movies. It just does such an incredible job of balancing, making it feel real, with just how far they went with the actors, and the finale still just so bone-chilling when they go into the house, and there's such a level of ambiguity that it feels nightmarish. And I was lucky enough to even win a stickman from one of the production designers.
Of course, you won
Makes a
something.
good desk ornament.
Can't leave the house without winning something.
Yeah, no, if I just stand on the street corner like a Blu-ray set will magically appear in my arms off the back of a truck.
It's true. It's true. I've seen it.
There will never be another Blair Witch Project because I
Nope.
think audiences now are too smart. Even with something like Paranormal Activity, that was pretty convincing. People are like, no, this is found footage. But when Blair Witch was released, it fooled so many people.
It was that magic moment of the internet.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was like, the internet was still relatively new, first 10 years, first 5 years of its real popularity. And the internet campaign for it, I mean, they were invading chat rooms and, web, message boards, and they had people convinced. And I don't think you'd be able to convince people that something like that is real. I mean, I
Oh
appreciate.
yeah, no, you couldn't get away with it today.
Yeah, I appreciate found footage. I mean, I love it, and I'll watch any found footage movie, hoping 9 times out of 10 they're really bad, but I always will watch it, hoping to find the next Paranormal Activity or Lake Mungo that just the next Megan is missing, that kind of a thing, because when it's done well, it's done so well. But I don't think you're ever going to fool anyone again like Blair Witch did.
No, I mean it was just a magic moment,
Yeah.
like you were saying, just with the kind of internet being relatively new, so a lot of people were kind of adjusting to that and the spreading of information. Plus, they handed out those missing persons posters at Cannes and stuff like that, and the actors were disappeared for a while. And I even rewatched Curse of the Blair Witch, the documentary accompaniment that aired on the Sci-Fi Channel to help kind of plug the movie even more. So, just really lean into that. And I even rewatched the Scooby-Doo project, the Scooby-Doo parody they did on Cartoon Network. So, just thinking back on the kind of cultural phenomenon that was, because everybody was doing a Blair Witch parody back in '99 and afterward.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think the closest thing was the one that predated the McPherson tape, and that mainly went
Yeah.
believed in or pre-internet viral because copies were being spread around without the end credits, so everyone thought it was an actual alien invasion movie. To the point where the director remade it in the '90s to be like, "No, see, it's a work of fiction," and everyone went, "No, you work for the government."
Nah.
Oh yeah.
Well, also Ghost Watch on the BBC fooled
Yeah.
everybody
Oh, yeah.
too. But that was more of a War of the Worlds kind of thing, where it was
Yeah.
like,
It was live.
yeah, they were going live and they knew what they were doing. I mean, when you're watching something live on Halloween, you got to expect that, but it did scare people.
Ghostwatch was so I could not even put my brain into the mindset of being fooled by it, mainly because it has the actor from Red Dwarf in it, and so it was immediately like I was pulled out because of that. It's still a great watch and so much fun. I do think though that when it comes to convincing and misinformation on the internet, I think people are super ripe for it. I mean, I don't think you can do it as part of a movie campaign, but
Right.
I think the spread of misinformation and things that are happening. I mean, I would say the modern equivalent to the Blair Witch phenomenon is QAnon and all that. 1000%.
Kind of, I guess.
Very similar tactic. There's a whole deep web or rabbit hole thing that you can go down on, like how that happened. But
Right.
yeah.
But yeah, although it feel like that's kind of an apples and oranges situation.
Right, they're both fruit. Yeah.
But yeah, the closest approximation I could think of for found footage today is Frogman, which, I mean, it wasn't plugging itself to be real, although they did do a thing where they made up the Frogman as like a local legend or cryptid. But, everybody knew it was a movie, but it's also fun. Like, I really like it.
Is Frogman actually a local cryptid from that area? I mean,
No.
there's no truth to it?
They
Okay.
made that up, but they did establish their own kind of local folklore and saying like Frogman is it around this town in Kentucky, I think.
Because the Legend of Boggy Creek is based on a real cryptid.
Oh yeah,
but,
Bigfoot,
but well, no, it's the folk monster, which I guess is
Sam Squatch.
Yeah, I guess it is a Bigfoot. but most of it is fabricated. Most of the movie they made, but it is based on real legends. So
And the Blair Witch Project was inspired by the Boggy Creek movie.
Yeah.
So it all goes full circle, really.
That 4K restoration on Boggy Creek is
Boggy Creek and the director's next movie, the Town That Dreaded Sundown. Those movies have no right to look as good as they do in these restorations. These are the movies that you're supposed to be able to see the grain on.
I
and
love
Boggy Creek 2, The Legend Continues.
Yes, which I still need to watch. I still haven't watched my Vincent version of it. Speaking of Vincent, I went to the archive in Colorado, and I gotta say, it is great. Especially if you're a big VHS fan. Holy shit, their VHS collection is massive. A lot of great stuff. If you're in the Denver area, highly recommend going there. It's just nice to see where all my Blu-rays get shipped out of, because they cover the West Coast shipments there.
You get to go to the nursery.
Oh, great staff, great selection. I was very tempted to buy a Laserdisc player that they had there, because it was $130. They tested it, and I'm like, ooh, a working Laserdisc player. But I didn't have room in my carry-on for it. And but they had a great deal where if you bought it, you could pick 2 laser discs for free. So I was very tempted, very, very tempted.
Look, you just put a wig on the laser disc and say that it's your child.
My flight back home was half empty, so maybe I could have. This is my boy, my baby boy.
Yeah, Johnny Jr.
So now let's bring in our special guest for the episode. This episode, we have Shihan Van Clief, the director of my first horror film. How you doing, Shihan?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here.
Thanks for being here. Let's start off at the beginning. How did you get started as a filmmaker? How'd you get started?
Actually, as a filmmaker, I mean, I love film. I grew up loving film. My father actually did a lot of blaxploitation films in the 70s, so I grew up just loving film. And I used to, I still to this day, I watch almost a movie a day. To this day, I love film. I love storytelling in general. And I grew up where my father was a single dad, so he used to take me to everything. So I remember going to the movies to see The Thing and seeing The Boogans when I was 5 and 6 years old and stuff like that. And so I just loved horror films. And so when I got older, I knew I wanted to tell stories through film, but I was scared to ask, right? And I think as artists, a lot of people are scared to ask for help when you're doing stuff. So I was like, how am I going to do this? And I had a lot of friends who were in the entertainment industry who were like, why don't you just get it done? Stop saying you're a writer. Stop saying you're this. Unless you're getting something done, you're none of those things. So I winded up getting some friends together and said, look, here's what I'd like to do. This is the idea. And my mentor said, if you can get it done for this much, I'll give you the money to do it. And I said, oh, shit. And so that's basically what the jump off point was. And from that moment on, it was about a month, as far as this movie specifically, from idea to starting first day of shooting. But I loved film. I did television. I wrote advertisements. I was a copywriter for years. I also directed commercials for Powerade and Wingstop and all sorts of stuff. So filming was part of my thing, but telling my story was what I wanted to do. And that's kind of what happened with my first horror film.
If you don't mind me asking, what movies did your dad make?
So there was a series of films called The Black Dragon. So he was in this Black Dragon's Revenge, Death of Bruce Lee, Where the Black Dragon. Then he choreographed the film. He choreographed a few different films, did a lot of stunt coordination, but he wound up doing The Last Dragon, which was like a huge film in the 80s. And he was also the choreographer for that. And so I was on set every day because my dad was doing that. So, my dad was actually the commissioner for the UFC for a while. My father's in martial arts, so it was all martial arts films that he was into. Ron Van Clief was his name. Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, I was just curious because so he was mainly a stunt guy, or
he was a stunt guy. He was the lead in the Black Dragon series. He was the lead because he was Ron Van Clief, the Black Dragon, and and so that's kind of what it was.
Yeah, funny enough, I think I saw a bit about him in that new documentary about Bruce exploitation, Enter the Clones of Bruce.
Yes, he is in that. Yes, he is.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah, they were friends. They were friends, and actually, he got the name the Black Dragon from Bruce Lee himself. So, yeah,
that's super awesome. I was wondering because with my first horror film, the credits, which are hilarious, there is that moment where it says
Credits are hysterical. When you guys watch this movie, read through the credits because my favorite. It's financing by Sheehan's Pockets.
Yeah.
But I saw and thank you, of course, to the Last Dragon. I was just like, hell yeah, Last Dragon fucking rules. I didn't realize there was that much of a personal connection. That's amazing.
Yeah. Super close connection.
And I wanted to ask, where did my first horror film stem from, or what inspired you?
I was watching. So I was watching. It was two different things. I actually had watched Halloween 2, and right after I watched Halloween 2, I saw an interview with some actors talking about how difficult the industry is and how basically you could show up in an alleyway. You could be told your audition is going to be in an alleyway. And because people are so wanting to get a job that they literally would show up and get in a van and just go wherever this van took them because they want to work so badly. And so watching Halloween and then watching that interview, it made me think about the friends I have who are actors and the things they do and the stories I've heard from them about what they did for work. And I was like, okay, this is what I can do. I can tell this story. And Halloween specifically, I love the idea. I mean, in Halloween, they obviously show blood when you get shot in the eyes and those kind of things. But for the most part, especially in the first one, there wasn't very much blood. And I like the idea of telling a story and telling a scary story that did not have blood in it and also didn't have to have everything on screen. I also loved that idea. And so putting the two together, I was like, I think I can make this work. But can I get the team together to make that happen? And I think that was more the reserve on my end, was kind of like holding the reservation on my end, was holding back and saying, okay, do I have the right piece to play? Because to get this done and play it the way I'd like to play it, I have to have the actors who kind of can come off as natural as possible and almost like a fluid, like, and get the language of the writing so it comes off like it's natural. Because I love Jamie Lee Curtis was obviously fantastic and was one of the original Scream Queens. And still there's debate about, whether or not Pam Grier was in Scream Black and Scream or even in, in Black Christmas. But I love that idea that she was just so natural in what she did. And it was such a good role for her. And so the people we put in play was kind of also a motivating factor behind it. And some of the people I knew.
Oh, absolutely. I was watching, I was actually at my friend's house, who's one of my, he's in my production company. And him and I came up doing the low budget LA shorts and movies and whatnot. And so that whole experience of showing up and it just kind of like not being organized and like you said, showing up in an alley, getting in a van. We were both sitting there. I'm like, are you triggered right now? These are the sets we met on. This is where we came from. So for us, it was like,
you were the guy driving the van though. When
yeah, not always. I did a lot of roles, but like when they show up to set and there's like, the wardrobe person's wearing like 5 hats, also doing makeup, also doing all that stuff. I'm like, man, I think I know the set that they're on too, man. Like, I think I am like, so I was already in it from the beginning. I'm like, I'm so uncomfortable right now just from personal experience. So, yeah.
Oh, cool. That's cool. Thank you.
One of the things I found interesting about it, and I noticed it because last night I just happened to watch the Chernobyl Diaries again. And that movie is not really found footage, but it's so lo-fi. And it almost feels like the camera is another character. And in my first horror film, some of it is, done through the social media or the photography of lead, but some of it where it'll step out of that and you'll still see, it'll go to more traditional filmmaking, but it'll still be that lo-fi, like you're peeking over the shoulder of people. What were some of the influences for the visual style? I mean, obviously the lack of money was one of them, but
lack of money. Yes.
But what were some of the visual influences? Like I said, I noticed it with Chernobyl Diaries. This kind of goes well with that.
For me, I think I'm a big, like I said, I brought up Halloween already, but Halloween, Friday the 13th, I love the idea of it being seen from first person. So, obviously opening of Halloween with the same in Friday the 13th, you're seeing through the eyes of so you're part of it. I also am a P.T. Anderson fan. I love his films, Boogie Nights and Magnolia, There'll Be Blood. And I do like you're watching something happen. Giallo kind of had a thing too where it was like, oh shit, like there's stuff happening and you're kind of watching it, but you're kind of close to it. You may not be the one doing it, but you're close enough to be experiencing what's happening without any threat to you. And I kind of played with that. I think that was kind of the thing. And so there was a lot of figuring out what camera made sense for what moment, right? So the real camera, the real footage, not the found footage, not the camera that she's walking around with, that footage had to make sense. So when kills were happening, when things were happening that were real life, that was happening on real camera. When it was, so that was something that we had to pay attention to. A lot, actually.
And on that note, what inspired you to go with the influencer aspect for the lead?
Part of it, a huge part of it, is my daughter and a lot of these people now who feel like that is the thing. Like just doing the thing is enough, or just cause you do it. Like it was brought about me, my poetry background, right? So just because you say you're a writer, or just because I say I do film or I'm a model, it's like there's more to it than that. And so the ease of it, I think there was this parallel for me where I could look at the time. I wasn't necessarily thinking like this, but when I look at it after the fact, I felt like Lead kind of was my story, right? She's making this thing, not knowing what's going to happen, which was my story in creating my first horror film, to write it, to direct it, to do the different things. And I was kind of experiencing the character of Lead. Like that's what it was, in a weird way. But I think it was a lot with the young people I'm around that I go, sheesh, there's a lot you put into this, a lot of stake and a lot of weight you put on this that doesn't necessarily imply safety in the sense of like monetary, like, yo, I'm gonna be an influencer. Doesn't mean you're gonna be able to live. And so that parallel too, like she thinks she's gonna live just because she's the thing, or so-and-so's gonna live. And it's like that gets blurred along the ways.
Oh man, you hit us a little too hard because we're podcasters, folks. We don't get paid for this.
Oh yeah.
But there's a passion to it that I think
Absolutely.
can't be removed from what it is. But and I feel like that's with most art and arts that you love, right? Because even though horror is this thing that makes a lot of money, there's still a lot of people go, oh, that's the kind of film you did, or that's they like shit on it. And I go, oh, are you kidding me? Like this is a great art form, great genre in general. And especially recently, there's been such great horror that I'm like, how could you discount it as anything other than some great filmmaking for what it is? In the same way with any kind of art and podcasting in general. This takes time. I know the setup of this and getting things in order is not just like, okay, turn your camera on. Okay, let's go. It's okay. We have to go through a run of show and see, make sure this is happening. Are your headphones working, your microphone working? Are we getting the right sound? Are the levels correct? Or this and this? So I always think it's valuable when people are artists and they do the thing they love to do, but there's danger in it. There is danger in it.
Oh, it's always the weirdest thing, especially when it comes to film, because it is an art form, but first and foremost, it's also a business. So
yes,
there's always that thing. So especially with horror, it's often dismissed as like, oh, that's just a cash grab. Oh, that's just an easy way to get money. And it's like, well, there's a lot you can. I mean, yes, but also within that realm, you could play around with it a lot. I think Corman and other filmmakers would often say, we have to include the things that sell. We need, we need blood and we need boobs and we need this. Outside of that, do whatever you want. And that's why Joe Dante and all those other ones were able to get away with so much social commentary in their work. And John Carpenter, especially. I mean,
oh, yes. Oh, yes.
It's an exciting genre. You will not find bigger defenders of that. It's worth it. I mean, our very first episode was why isn't horror included in the Oscars more often?
Yeah, I mean, and I've seen recently, at least, some of the horror filmmakers at least trying to get their recognition in the Oscars. I have seen, I remember last year or the year before last, they tried to get Mia Goth for Pearl, and I thought that was a smart thing. That was 22, right? So I thought that was great. I think I even saw Terrifier, they tried to get that nominated for makeup and stuff. But here's the thing. Like, I think because it's been discounted as a genre for so long, I think you have to take those jumps and say, yo, recognize this. And at first people go, and whatever, and blow it up. But at some point, someone will go, oh, that's actually a really great scene. That's a really great, that exploding chest, or the, in Alien or whatever, that's great to see. Even the costume design, or the makeup design, obviously it didn't get nominated for that, but for Silence of the Lambs, when he walks in, when they walk into where Lecter was, and the dude's hanging up in the fucking thing with his chest all open, that's a great scene. The visual of that, just on a visual level, it's like the fact that they'll go, the acting was good, but that was, it's like, that looked fantastic. That was fantastic, So I think the more things happen, they will get those shots. I loved Barbarian last year. I thought Barbarian was great. And like in the three act structure of how they laid out the story, I know there's people who feel like different things about it or whatever, but I think that the different tones for each act I thought were great. I thought that was a great idea. You know what I mean? And looking at, they played well, and the actors were good. And like, I think all of that at some point will be recognized, hopefully sooner than later. But I do believe it's an undervalued genre consistently.
Well, now after 70 years, we finally have Godzilla Oscar winner, because we did get a visual effects Oscar for Godzilla. So things are changing, but I think you're right. Mia Goth got completely robbed. And you know who else? Lupita Nyong'o for Us got totally snubbed that year. And Toni Collette in Hereditary. How did that not get nominated? So there is still work to be done.
Toni Collette, first of all, she's great at everything, because I thought she was great in the car scene in Sixth Sense. I thought just the scene where he tells her about the grandmother, I'm like, she's killing this scene. How is she not being recognized for what she's doing? So yeah, I 100%.
And that's as close to an Oscar movie as she's done too.
And on the subject, it is ironic because at the start of the Oscars, like movies like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde won Best Actor with like Frederick March. So there was a time when these types of movies got this kind of recognition. Just there was a cultural shift.
Well, Sigourney Weaver got nominated for Aliens.
For Best
Actor. So, I mean, every once in a while it does happen. And Silence of the Lambs, you said, the makeup effects may not have won, but they won the big five.
They did
when they were nominated. So, I mean, every once in a while, The Shape of Water did well when it was up, and it's questionably horror, but it's a monster movie.
It's a monster film. Yeah.
Let's not forget Jordan Peele won for screenplay with Get Out. So,
Screenplay can sometimes be the miscongeniality of the Oscars, though. It's like they're not going to give anything else for that movie, so let's give it screenplay. So. I mean, Get Out was my favorite movie of that year. I thought it should have won everything.
Absolutely.
And back in my first horror film, you said since the premise is about a micro-budget horror movie, and you said you drew on some real-life stories, I was wondering just how you constructed it.
How I constructed the story itself?
Yeah.
I looked at a day in the life. I want to do a one-day story. I knew I wanted to do that, right? And I thought of the day in the life of, so for a while, one of the people who shows up in the film also has a cameo at the end in the credits. We were roommates together, right? And so I got to see them go on auditions all the time and what that life was like. And so I would talk to him a lot about what that was, what they did, why they did this. Would you just go out for anything? Does it matter? Does it? And so then stuff about conversations about being an actor and what kind of roles are available to you, right? And so as I constructed it, I wanted it to be a story that was about lead, but also talked about and made commentary on what people are willing to do for recognition in any capacity, right? Like what kind of vulnerability they allow themselves to go through to finally be seen. So as I was putting things together, I thought, well, what are these conversations like? Some of the conversations I have with my friends. What are these conversations like when we talk about film, when we debate about any film? What is that conversation? And in horror, and someone who's going to do that, what are these conversations we have? Yeah, you know what? I loved Paranormal Activity 2 more than I liked the others. That's a disagreement with my friends. But again, that conversation. So in the beginning, when they're talking about this person and this and what that means, I wanted to include that along the way, but also still have someone who was looking at it from the outside, which her best friend is doing, right? And she's going, "You're not paying attention to this?" And this was stuff I was thinking when I was with my friend. Wait, you're not, this doesn't raise a flag at all? And that was part of the inclusion of like the Willy Wonka little thing in the car where she goes, no one knew what he was doing. No one ever saw Willy or his Wonka. And those recuts of like horror, like comedies and turning them into horror, like they did with the Mrs. Doubtfire and those kind of things. It's like those things. So I wanted it to be this continuing conversation that's evolving as the things are happening, but then there's still people who are unaware of what danger they are in. I see it all the time where you're like, you don't see, there's someone running with a hatchet in a mall and someone's just standing going, what'd you say? What? And then they're gone. Right. So I wanted to include that in the construction of what I was doing. Right. So as it moves along, each person is having their own observations that they're making, while there are some who have no clue, regardless of what's going down. They still are like, what? Because I think that's real. I think that's real life. And I think the comedy and the horror part of it and infusing that in it, what was important for me, I think that's a very blurred line between comedy and horror. Because I think they're both extremely difficult to do. And both depend on a vulnerability from the audience watching, right? Because comedy, it's like going to a comedy club. So many people are just waiting to go, that's not funny.
Yeah.
That's not scary. That would never happen, right? And I think blending that and putting those things together allows it to open up more. Because I think making someone laugh is one of the hardest things to do. And once you open up to that, it allows the other things to take place. So that's why it starts a little on the lighter side so that you can kind of like, oh, okay, I like this girl. She's funny. She's da-da-da-da-da. And then as it happens, you're like, okay. And I think it's a natural progression. So I'm putting it together. That's how I looked at it.
The friend role is almost like the role of the audience because she's saying what everyone's thinking. She's like, you're really going to get in this van with these strangers, drive off for the rest of today, be back at midnight-ish.
Midnight-ish, yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah. And she was great. I loved her too. Everyone in the cast, it was first time working with any of them in any capacity. So it's like a complete thing too. And I think that's the thing of the parallel I can draw between being the lead and me myself doing it the first time. Like, oh shit, this is all new. Everything is new. So
yeah. And what a great cast too, because even in the trailer, I was like, I instantly don't trust this director. and there's a few moments in the movie where and it's like early, in the interactions and stuff. Even when he's being friendly, I'm like, I've seen those eyes before. I don't trust him. Like,
right.
The casting
is giving me big
phenomenal.
Duplass creep vibes.
Yes, right? Yeah, totally. Yeah, Miles was great. He was great. Yeah, and I'm trying to think of how even people were brought in. What's crazy is we lost two of the actors the weekend before we started shooting. So we did a complete recast for two characters, and then someone had to shuffle into another role. So it was a whole lot of trying to learn stuff in the weekend leading up to first day of shoot. So the guy who played Jock was not part of the thing at all. He came in on that Friday. Someone got COVID the weekend before, so they couldn't be included at all. But I do think that reshuffling of who played what actually played out really well in the film. So the best friend was originally the girlfriend, and the girl who's the girlfriend was actually the PA. So all these roles kind of shifted all around, which I thought wound up working to our advantage, but it was definitely an oh shit moment. Like, are we going to be able to get this done? Are they going to know everything when it's time? So
now, listeners that might be confused by how we're talking about this, no one in this movie uses their real name by design. So like they're called their characters lead, jock, girlfriend, and then there's, PA, director. So when we say it's not that we can't remember these names,
right?
Those are the names.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and everyone was thrown off too. They're like, "Wait, we're not gonna have names." I'm like, no, actually, no name, no name.
But there's some genuinely great moments because of that. So like one of the characters he's play his character's name is the black guy, and so for the whole movie
Yeah.
they're like the black guy.
Yeah,
And
where's the black guy?
there's moments where it's like they really need to know who this person is. It's like, yeah, and then there's the black guy. Or
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing too. And I think that's part of, to me, again, after the fact, when I was writing it, those things weren't being thought about as much. But after I was like, oh, it makes sense when they're even asking and police are involved and it's like, who's so and so? It's like, I don't know. I don't know who anybody is.
yeah, who's there? Well, there's the PA, there's the girlfriend, and you can just see on the police's face being like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. Exactly.
But also, that's pretty real. I mean, I've been on plenty of sets and people were like, what's it about? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I couldn't tell you what's going on here. But I got the call at 3 a.m. I've
Right.
been here since 6. So,
And yeah, no, I do love the kind of meta aspect to the film, especially as a horror movie. And you've definitely shown that you're a huge horror fan. And I wanted to ask just kind of how you went about that, or like, did you do any additional research, or we're watching similar movies?
I watched let's see, I watched Final Girls again. I went through and watched Dream Warriors. I watched like I said, I watched The Thing, even though obviously mine's not a monster film. I watched The Thing because some of the stuff I really liked in The Thing was the not knowing of what it is and what's happening, right? They know something's happening, but they don't know what is happening, right? And it takes so long. So I looked at that and how that was strung together. I looked at again, not a horror film. I looked at this movie, The Killer, a David Fincher film.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
with Netflix one.
And because there was a process, right? I enjoy process. So listening to the process be narrated through that film, I was thinking about how I'm narrating this story throughout, even though they're totally separate. They're not in the same world at all. It's totally different things. But I looked at that, and then I watched a bunch of series. So I watched the first season of Fear. I watched I watched The Wailing, which I think is fucking amazing. I love the movie The Wailing, Korean film, horror film. I watched The Night Of again on HBO, which is also not horror, but this back and forth of, again, not being given the answer. As a writer, I felt like it was always important not to give the answer to what the thing is, because I've always felt it was better to walk out of a film going, blah, 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 or laughing or whatever, than being, oh, that was cool. And then there's nothing else there. So I was trying to figure out what conversations could be started on screen. Does it matter that, some people may get the whole black guy thing. Like, black guy is going to be black guy. And he says the tropes in the beginning, right? So I was thinking about those things. I watched The Blackening. I watched Blair Witch again, because to this day, I still love the last scene in it. I still like the film, I can whatever about, but I really love the last scene when they run through the house and she walks and he's just in the corner. I just felt it was a great setup moment where it's like, and the music the score was really good. It was just like this rumble underneath, and it's like, oh shit, something's going, and I thought that was great. So in my head, I was like, what is the antithesis of that for me? Right. And it's, whatever happens at the end. Right. And so it's those kind of things. So I watched so many things. But like I said, I watch a lot all the time anyway. Like, I was like looking at posters in the back also, like, all the films in the back, I like The Big Lebowski. It's just my glasses weren't there at first. So I was like, oh, these films, they all tell me something. So I try and watch whatever genre I'm jumping into. Oh, Host, the movie Host, Jed Shepard, was the whole thing's told on Zoom.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to him about this also, like when it was being done, and then him watching it. And we were talking about what that was. Like, I thought that was important too. Like, I think getting feedback as I'm watching things, but also getting feedback from certain people who, had experience in. Yeah.
They're
Absolutely.
the third act of my first horror film, it was giving me real hardcore Blair Witch vibes when they're
Yeah.
running around the shaky cam and stuff. So yeah, I could tell that you had watched that. What's coming up for you? What you working on now?
So currently I'm working on my follow up, which is more in the thriller vibe, right? So it's a totally different thing. I just finished the second draft. It's getting turned over on next week for production companies to look, so we can find out what realistic budget we're going to be working with to get that done. But that's basically a Thelma and Louise meets the fugitive kind of film about a support group for survivors of abuse who track down abusers and basically fuck them up. Basically, it's the setup.
Cool. Hell yeah.
So yeah, and that's what I'm working on now. And yeah, just editing, and then while I'm up here, I'm just go in the room at night. There's a moose lodge with a nice big giant moose bust right over my head. I just sit there, I'm writing, thinking about stuff, and I'm trying to, also incorporate elements of horror. It is not a horror film, but I think incorporating elements of horror because again, I think playing with what characters people are in real life do, teeter on being monsters in real life. So I think that's kind of where even that idea came from, was like, there's a monster element to what this is, even though these are real people and how they do things.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us this morning, Shihan. Everybody watch my first horror film and stay for the credits, because not only do you get to see audition footage, which is a lot of fun, but read the credits because they are hysterical. Again,
thank you so much.
Read all the way through the end. And look forward to it being a big success for you.
Thank you.
Where can people find you to find out what you're doing? Are you on the socials?
I am on socials. It's all The Real Shihan. So TheRealShihan, just The Real Shihan. And that's kind of what it is. Or if you can just Google my name, Shihan Van Clief, and you can find whatever else you're looking for. But yeah, that's it. And I hope everyone gets a chance to watch it, enjoy it, pick it up, pre-order it, do all the things and enjoy it. My thing is enjoy it. I'm a big fan of enjoying it.
It releases on August 13th, so you'll have your chance to enjoy it for yourself then. And thanks again for joining us. So,
thank you very much.
Our theme song is by Restless Spirit, so go and enjoy them. And our artwork is by Chris Fisher, so go and enjoy him. And you can find us on any of the socials at Eye on Horror or at iHorror.com, which is the site we all call home. And everybody go see my first horror film. And we will see you in a couple of weeks. So for me, James J. Edwards.
I'm Jacob Davison.
I'm Jonathan Correia.
And I'm Shihan Van Clief.
Keep your eye on horror.